1981, in Fukuoka, Japan, Robert D. Castella of Australia won the marathon in 2 hours, 8 minutes, and 18 seconds, just 5 seconds behind Salazar. He is ranked number 2 in the world. They meet today for the first time in a marathon in the land of windmills and tulips, of Erasmus and Rembrandt. The site is the historic city of Rotterdam, the city from which the Pilgrim Fathers began their voyage to America, a thriving town of shipping and commerce, and where this monument remembers 30,000 of its citizens killed on May 14, 1940, when German bombs destroyed the city. Rotterdam, where the Rhine and the Maas rivers rush eagerly to the sea, has been rebuilt into a complex of modern office buildings and shopping malls. It is the largest port in the world. Rotterdam, a city of character. Hello, everybody. Jack Whitaker, and behind me, the lovely town hall of Rotterdam, one of the few buildings not destroyed in World War II, and where this marathon will begin and end. With us is Marty LaCourie, ABC's race analyst, and Marty, we can honestly say this is quite an elite field.
Well, it certainly is. The 4 best men from last year are all here and ready to run. Starting with the 4th man from last year, Gerard Nibor, the European champion and Olympic champion, is here, a heavy local favorite. Then you have Rodolfo Gomez of Mexico coming to avenge his loss to Alberto Salazar by only 4 seconds at the New York Marathon. He won this race last year. But the man many people consider to be Salazar's top challenger is Rob D. Castella of Australia. This man has run within 5 seconds of Salazar's world record, and more importantly, many people think he's the only man that mentally can run with Salazar. But Salazar is both people's favorite. He's run 4 marathons, he's won them all, he's run the world's fastest time, and he seems to be, as an undefeated man, the man you have to look to control the race.
How about this course?
Well, I think the reputation of the course has something to do with all these top people being here. It's a very level course. You can't even find a hill on it. It's also been laid out so that it's very shaded from the wind. So many of the world's best have run their fastest times here. In fact, the meet officials and the town surveyors have assured everyone that it is the full 26.2 miles because it has run so many fast times.
Marty, we know that Alberto has been troubled recently by a leg injury. What do you hear about that?
Well, Alberto's had some problems for about 6 weeks with a groin injury. He says that this is the type of injury you have to learn to race with, but he does say that it's in the back of his mind. As competitors get ready to start out of the city, they'll be contemplating a standard out-and-back course, which means that the start and the finish are both in the same general vicinity. They'll head out of the city to a park around the lake where they'll run around the lake 3 times. This part of the course is well shaded by trees, and there shouldn't be any problem with wind. Then they'll come back into the city and back to the city center.
We're very close to the start of this race now. 400 strong lining up here. Number 1 will be Salazar, number 2, Di Castella. And there they go, and this Rotterdam Marathon is underway.
Well, Jack, as you mentioned, there's only 400 in the race, not because they couldn't have gotten a lot more, but they tried to keep it an elite race. You had to qualify to get in. That's one of the reasons Rob D. Castella from Australia said that he would run here, because he knows a small group will lead to a better run race.
They're going down the Collingsee now, one of the main streets in downtown Rotterdam. They will go around that traffic circle you see with the fountain in the middle and garnished with trolley tracks, and then back up the Collingsee and head toward the River Maas.
As they start out here, they're well protected by the wind in the center city here. Perhaps the only spot on the course where they can be running into any wind is about from the 1 mile to the 3 mile, and then on the way back from 24 to 26. The day has just come upon us as a perfect day for the marathon. It's about 47 to 50 degrees, not much wind. The crowd, at least at the start here for the first mile or so, is tremendous. We don't know what it's like on the rest of the course, but I expect that this town is really turned out for the marathon.
And there is Salazar right in the front.
Salazar, number 1, and John Graham, number 8, from Scotland, seems to be the man that many people will lead for the first 10 miles. No one seems to be going out and setting the pace. Let's remember that some of the favorites like Gomez and Salazar will probably want to stay behind in the early going, and Di Castella, John Graham, and Gerhard Nabor, the Dutch runner, may want to go out and push the pace.
Here they come through the finish line for the first time, and the crowd gives them a great hand. This has been built up, of course, as a mano-mano between Salazar and De Castella. An important race for both of them. We asked both men how important it was.
That's very important in that there's a lot of controversy and debate among people as to which one of us is actually the best marathoner in the world, since our times are only 5 seconds apart. Whoever wins between the two of us in this race, I think, will be able to lay claim to that.
Who do you think is going to win?
Oh, I think I will, but a lot of things can happen. I'm sure he thinks he will. You've got to be confident, but at the same time, you know, you've got to realize that you never know for sure. A lot of things can happen out there in 26 miles, and sometimes the better man may not win on that day, and you just got to learn to live with it.
Is there any more pressure on this race coming up than you've had before?
Well, I think it's been built up as a very big match race against Salazar and myself, so I think there's a lot of media attention, a lot of public interest in it. I think pressure is a very personal thing. It often depends how much pressure or how much expectation you personally put on yourself. If I can go into this race and finish it and run well and run what I feel has been a very competitive race for myself, irrespective of where I finish or the time that I run, I'll be somewhat satisfied. Of course, I'll be disappointed if I don't win or don't get a world record. But I think you have to be satisfied with the best you can do to a certain extent.
Well, as you just heard, this race is very important to both these athletes. Number 2, De Castella on the left. Number 1, Salazar on the right. In the middle, John Graham of Scotland, number 8. They are the leaders at this point.
It's hard to tell right now if the pace is fast or slow. I think that one thing that may have happened without a 6,000 or 8,000 person crowd, there hasn't been that great rush to establish the lead and fight for position, and the front runners have had a little bit easier time getting to the front, so they may not be running as fast as they would, say, in New York or Boston, where they're running from the crowd almost at the beginning. Salazar here, I'm sure, does not want to be leading yet, and he is just waiting for someone else to come up.
But at this point, it's De Castella, number 2 on the left, John Graham of Scotland, number 8 in the middle, and Salazar, number 1 on the right, remain the leaders. And we'll be back with more of the Rotterdam Marathon. We're back at the Rotterdam Marathon. When we last left you, John Graham of Scotland, Alberto Salazar of the United States, and Robert De Castella of Australia were leading. After the 10-kilometer mark, that has not changed too much. That's where we are, on a place called the Bodice Reef, which rims this park, around which they'll go 3 times. You're looking still at Graham leading with De Castella right beside him. Salazar behind. They've been joined by the 2 Gomez boys from Mexico, Rodolfo and Jose, and Carlos Lopes of Portugal. It was, in the beginning at least, a fast pace, Marty.
It was, Jack, at 5 kilometers, which is just a little over 3.1 miles. They were 13 seconds ahead of world record pace, 13 seconds faster than Salazar had run in New York. Now at 10K, which is 6.2 miles, they are at 30 minutes, 21 seconds. 1 second ahead of what Salazar ran in his New York world record. Just before they came up to the 10K, Robert De Castella came up to John Graham of Scotland's shoulder and was talking to him. Perhaps he noticed that the pace had slowed down, and he was urging Graham to take the pace or maybe to pick it up. They can realize that 4 or 5 seconds a mile now can really let that record slip away. Certainly still well within their grasp. They went out quite quickly, which looked on the screen to be very easy for all of them. They all looked like they're running very easily at this point.
That's John Graham, number 8. Robert De Castella of Australia, number 2, and right behind them comes Alberto Salazar, just past the 10-kilometer mark.
Well, Gomez, both Gomez's, Rodolfo and Jose, who were so tough in New York 2 years ago against Salazar, have dropped now to the back of the pack, and even though it's about 47 degrees here, they seem to be taking water at every chance they get, knowing, I suppose, that the pace is easier now than it is going to be later on in the race, where it'll be impossible to grab a drink. De Castella seems very relaxed, looking around, not pressing at all, and Salazar, as in all the races that I've seen him, he seems to be within himself, his eyes kind of focused just ahead of him. He probably doesn't know what country this is or how many people are lining the sides of the streets. He's just focusing on maybe De Castella's backside.
The old concentration. They'll go around this park 3 times among the trees there, but as you can see, the sunshine in this fragile Netherlands spring has broken through. That'll warm things up for them a bit. And at this point, it's John Graham of Scotland, Robert de Castella of Australia, Alberto Salazar of the United States, and Carlos Lopes. We'll return for more of the Rotterdam Marathon a little later on. They're running right beside each other, Rodolfo and Jose. They're not related, although they're both from Mexico. It's Salazar, de Castella, Lopes, and the 2 Gomez's now, and we'll be coming back to Rotterdam for more of this marathon in just a little while. Whitaker and Marty LaCour back at the Rotterdam Marathon. We're at the 37-kilometer mark, 23.5 miles into the race. When we last left you, it was Salazar, de Castella, Lopes, and Gomez. There's been a change, as you see. Here's de Castella leading the parade, and I think Salazar is slipping back, Marty.
Well, the long push for home has started. Actually, de Castella started about 2 miles ago, picking up the pace, and Salazar hung on for about 2 miles, but then coming over a little rise in the road and off the crown and down, de Castella and the rest of the field dropped Salazar. Salazar may be dropping back because he thinks they're going to come back to him, or he may be gambling that he can make this much up in the last mile. Or the third thing is that maybe that groin injury he spoke about before the race is acting up. But in any case, it's very late in the race for Salazar to be dropping off and losing contact like this. De Castella looks just like so many people had said he looked in his great marathons. He's very strong. He's gone to another stride almost, using his arms, lifting his knees, and he's going to be very hard to catch from behind.
As you can see from this overhead shot now, Salazar even dropping further behind that white truck. He's now about 30 yards and really out of contact.
He's out of contact, and the pace really speeded up very quickly because for about 5 miles there, they were fooling around, watching each other, and then with 5 to go, or actually about 7 to go, de Castella just picked up the pace. But I think he's done it a little bit too late to get the record. With about 2 miles to go, there's just not enough time for him to make up 40 or 50 seconds. He's just now broken Gomez. Gomez just changed the cadence of his stride, and he's kind of given up both mentally and maybe his body's going a little bit physically. And Salazar hanging in there gamely, but he's just letting too much of it go. The front runners are not coming back to him. They're pulling away.
Aren't they indeed? De Castella of Australia, number 2, and Carlos Lopes, 35 years old, from Portugal. It looks like a 2-man race now between them.
Well, Salazar has been in trouble in marathons before, but I don't think at this late stage that he can make this much back. He's never lost a marathon, but everyone who has ever run the marathon has lost one sooner or later. There's just too good of a look on these 2 runners now in our screen. Lopes on the left and de Castella on the right. They are not going to come back. They're not going to pull a big crash, as happens many times in the marathon. They're both strong, and it's come down to a speed versus strength race again.
All right, we'll be back for the finish of this marathon in just a moment. We're close to the finish now, about 600 yards left. It's de Castella and Lopes, a 2-man race.
The classical confrontation. Lopes on the left, a silver medalist in the 76 Olympics at 10,000 meters, has a lot of speed. I remember running against him. He's a quick little guy. He can change gears. But de Castella, supposedly the strong man, he thinks he can run everyone off their feet so that they don't have a kick at the end. It's the classic confrontation in all running events. The fast man against the man with strength. And de Castella, you can see the strain on his face. He's been pushing it. He's been pushing it for more than 5 miles. But Carlos Lopes looks very confident, just sitting there waiting to use his kick.
All right, that figure on the left, the bottom of your screen, at 2 hours, 8 minutes, and 13 seconds, the world best by Salazar, and the figure on the right is the current time. It looks like they won't beat it, but what a thrilling finish here.
And just a few feet separated, and Lopes could make this up in one big swoop, but de Castella just looks so strong. He's digging down, he's gritting it, and it's going to go right to the tape.
It's getting close. They're past the post office now. Next to that is the town hall where the finish line is. And look now, a little spurt here by de Castella. and 35-year-old Carlos Lopes. But here comes De Castella, the Australian, looking stronger with every stride he takes. And pulling away now from Lopes, Robert De Castella of Australia is going to win the Rotterdam Marathon of 1983. Unofficially in 2 hours, 8 minutes and 39 seconds. Second will be 35-year-old Carlos Lopes of Portugal. And way back up, still not quite in sight, the third, fourth, and fifth finishers.
Boy, there's some shocked people at the finish line here. First off, that De Castella was able to outkick in the last 200 meters Lopes. But secondly, it's sinking in very slowly that Alberto Salazar has lost his first marathon. He's still not even in sight as we see Gomez struggling to the finish. He was a crushed man, but the man that must be crushed a little bit both physically and maybe mentally now is Alberto Salazar, as he's found, as all great marathoners do, that if you keep running the marathon, it humbles you sooner or later.
He's not even going to finish fourth. Here comes Armand Parmentier of Belgium, who's going to become fourth finisher here. And Salazar, now looking very tired, Marty, will come in fifth.
Tired and I'm sure disappointed. He's been broken for the first time in a marathon, and whether it was a physical thing, he just wasn't prepared to run, or a mental thing, it's hard to say from here.
A surprise here at the Rotterdam Marathon. And here are the official results. The winner, Robert De Castella of Australia, 2 hours, 8 minutes, and 37 seconds. 24 seconds off the world's best set by Salazar on a point-to-point course. 19 seconds off his own best set on a standard course. Second place, Lopes. Third place, Gomez. Fourth, Parmentier. And Salazar, 2 hours, 10 minutes, and 8 seconds, was fifth.
Frank Gifford, ABC Sports Control in New York. A stunning upset in Rotterdam today. Rob De Castella finally taking a victory over Roberto Salazar. You saw him finish in fifth place. And boy, does that set up the Olympics coming up next.